What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So in the playoffs, only one team is deemed Stanley Cup champions, but that doesn't mean that these teams aren't going to have multiple cracks at it in following seasons. So I thought it'd be a fun idea today to go through every single team in the playoffs and kind of judge how long their window is in terms of being a highly competitive team, a highly cup contending team, not just in the playoffs. I'm talking actually have a serious threat to win it. So we're going to go through the 16 teams. I have 4 different labels that I'm going to apply to these teams. The first being it's almost over. This might be their last run or maybe next year. And then after that, it's all downhill from there. Have some more cracks at it. 3 to 4 more cracks at it at a pretty high level. Then we got around for a while. This is like 5 or more years that I think that they're going to be highly competitive. And they're here for the next decade, basically until like 2033, 2034. They're going to be a top tier team. So without further ado, let's get into it. Up first, I have the Florida Panthers. When looking at the Florida Panthers, they have this core basically it's not old by any means, but all of their players, for the most part, are between the ages of 26 to 29. I am going to go with around for a while, but I am teetering on also have some more cracks at it because I don't think that they have like 7, 8 more cracks at it, but I think 5 more. When looking at it, they do have Kachuk and Barkov signed long-term for the next 6 or 7 seasons at reasonable cap hits, and I think those guys are going to age well. So I still think that they have a lot of run at it. They don't have a ton of pressure on them right now, considering their cap structure. Their players are not that old. So I think the Florida Panthers are going to be around for a while. Next up, my New York Islanders. It's almost over, man. It barely, I mean, it did begin, obviously, back in 2020 and 2021. They had their runs, but it's kind of been downhill since then. Can they actually compete at a high level? I don't really see the path unless one season Sorokin is playing fantastic and carries them into the playoffs and they end up winning a Stanley Cup. Maybe I could see that down the line if they have everything go right. But probably the most realistic thing is their core just continues to age the next year or two. I wouldn't be shocked if they miss the playoffs next year. It's just not looking good for my New York Islanders. They're a competitive team, but even this year, they're not going to win a Stanley Cup. Vancouver, I'm going to go with around for a while. When you have your big two, be a guy in Quinn Hughes that's 24 years old and Pettersson 25. Yes, JT Miller is getting up there in age. I believe he's 30 years old, but they're going to be a highly competitive team up until 2030 based on what we saw this season, as well as they have a solid prospect pool. Hoglander is an NHL player right now, but he looks very promising. Leka Ramaki, Willander. I think I'm forgetting someone else, but Vancouver, they're going to be around for a decent amount. LA, this might surprise some people, but I'm actually going to go with have some more cracks at it instead of around for a while. I'm not sure about their future. Everybody hypes them up for having this fantastic future, and I really like Brant Clark and Quinton Byfield. But beyond that, I think some of their young talent really has not lived up to expectations. Alex Turcotte's the number one guy that comes to mind. More so concussions, more so injuries is limited to him. But unless Brant Clark and Quinton Byfield are basically Doughty and Kopitar 2.0, I don't see how the LA Kings are going to be a highly competitive team in 4 or 5 years, considering Kopitar right now is 36, 37, Doughty's 33, and even Kevin Fiala's 28 or 29, Kempe's 28. Their current pieces outside of Byfield for the most part, and PLD is not playing that good, and also he's 25 years old. They don't have a ton of young talent. Mikey Anderson's somewhat young, but he's never going to turn into something really special unless Jordan Spence, Byfield, and Clark are all fantastic players. I don't really see it happening that much longer for LA. I think once Kopitar and Doughty start regressing a decent amount, which really hasn't even happened yet, then I think it's going to be pretty quick when we realize that the LA Kings are falling off with the young talent, especially that's in the Western Conference, it's going to replace them. I think this is going to happen in like 3 to 4 years. Carolina, this is a decade plus. They are one of the rare decade plus teams. Looking at them right now, they do have some older players, but it's only really like Jordan Staal and Brett Burns. Slavin's one of their more experienced players on the team right now. Svechnikov, 24 years old. Aho, 26. Jarvis, 21 years old. Natchez, if they keep him, 24. Like most of their pieces are very young, as well as having a very underrated prospect pool. Alexander Nikishin, Scott Morrow's a defenseman that played at UMass that I really like. Bradley Nadeau's a steal in last year's draft. Jackson Blake, another guy that was a Hobie Baker finalist, 2021 4th-round pick. They're going to be around for a while, I think, for the next decade. They're one of the most Peter Kochetkov has emerged as that next guy for Frederik Andersen. They have one of the best features in the entire NHL. Although I think there's a lot of pressure on them this year to go out and win, considering they have a lot of restricted and unrestricted free agents. This might be their best crack, but their best crack in terms of like they're the favorites this year on the betting sites. So I think for the next decade, they're going to be a high-level team in the Metro Division and Eastern Conference. Toronto Maple Leafs, I am going to go with around for a while. Are they going to win a Stanley Cup the way that they're currently constructed? I don't think so. But as long as you have Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, even if they're getting paid a decent amount of money, you're going to be a high-level team. You got to figure out the defense. The defense is abysmal. They get an actual number 2 or an actual number 1. I don't even know if Morgan Riley's a number 1, as well as goaltending. I think this team can be a high-level team. Last year, I thought they really were built for the playoffs and had the talent. Florida was just on an absolute roll. Toronto, as long as they have Matthews in the next 4 seasons. They're going to be around for a while. They're going to be around for 6 or 7 years until Austin Matthews, if he still doesn't have a Stanley Cup, he decides to hit the road. That's the only way I can see Toronto not being in the mix in 5 or 6 years. The Washington Capitals, it's almost over. It's definitely almost over. In terms of the current core of Ovechkin, Tom Wilson, TJ Oshie, I like what they're building. Last year, getting Ryan Leonard, Andrew Crystal, McMichael, Protas. They have a bunch of very impressive pieces, but I think they're going to need a post-Ovi like full 1 or 2 years of stinking it up to get another high prospect, high elite talent. I'm not sure a Ryan Leonard-led core, although he is one of the better prospects in the entire NHL. Ryan Leonard, and then I guess like Crystal as your number 2. I don't really think that's enough to be competitive in the transitional period between Ovi. I think they're going to need to stink it up. And next year, I'll probably pick them to not make the playoffs. Washington Capitals, as we know it, it's almost over. Colorado Avalanche, around for a while. Similar train of thought here with Toronto, but they actually have playoff experience, playoff success in Colorado. As long as you have McKinnon, even though McKinnon is a little bit on the older side, 28 years old, Rantanen's 27, Makar's only 25. As long as you have those 3, you're going to be at the top of the standings. Devon Taze is getting up there in age, but I actually like the Casey Middlestat. Another thing about Casey Middlestat, that was another very good move in terms of prolonging their window, assuming they sign him. So as long as you have your key pieces, they're going to be a high-level team. I think they're most competitive, them being the Stanley Cup favorites like they were in 2022. Maybe those days are behind them because they have to shell out all these mega deals to Makar, to Rantanen, to McKinnon, which they all deserved. Their top tier contender status might not be back for another 3 to 4 years until they can do some, not a retool, but get some other fresh faces in there. But they're going to be contending for a bit of a while. Can't go a decade because Nathan McKinnon's going to be 38, 39 in a decade. I don't know how good it'll be. Tampa Bay Lightning. Have some more cracks at it. This year wasn't. I can see you saying it's almost over, just be considering Stamkos is a free agent this summer. But also, I think that this was a bit of a down year for Tampa Bay. Vasilevsky is not going to have a .900 save percentage next year. Sergachev, hopefully going to be fully healthy. He might come back for the goddamn playoffs. I think Tampa Bay can be a pretty competitive team, finished 3rd in the Atlantic, 2nd in the Atlantic. And it wouldn't shock me one bit if they did that next season. And considering their playoff experience, I can easily see them potentially going on one more deep run. I don't think that it's over now by any stretch, considering Kucherov's still playing the best that he has in his entire career. Points still extremely elite. Hedman's very good offensively, as well as guys like Hagel and Nick Paul really stepping up their game. Next up, Boston. I'm going to go few more cracks at it. Not a ton. I'd say maybe they have 3 more seasons. Once Brad Marchand is no longer an elite player and he has been trending down, then I'm probably low on Boston. But when looking at it right now, Pasta, top 10 player in the entire NHL. McAvoy still in the midst of his prime. One of the best defensemen in the entire NHL, as well as having a young guy like Jeremy Swayman. They don't have the depth. I don't love the depth, and some of their pieces are starting to get up there in age. But we keep on doubting Boston. But every single season, they manage to smash expectations. Maybe not playoff expectations recently. But I think Boston's going to be a competitive team for the next 3 to 4 years. Once you see a dip in Marchand, even Pasta, what is he now, 27, 28 years old? Once he maybe starts going down a little bit, I think you're going to see this team kind of fall apart and might finally need a rebuild. They'll probably find someone in the late first like Pasta and just be perfectly fine because they're Boston, but I think they have a few more cracks at it. Dallas, decade plus, man. They got a long way to go in terms of this core. Similarly to Carolina, very elite young core right now, even younger than Carolina when you look at it. Heiskanen's 24, 25 years old. Robertson's 25. Hintz is like an older guy considering their core, 27. And when looking at them, they're competing at such a high level with Jamie Benn and Sagan making $19 million combined right now. It's ridiculous. So when you see more guys like a Thomas Harley, a Stan Coven, Wyatt Johnston, Maverick Bourque, Liam Bichelle, they're going to be fantastic for the next decade. I have absolutely no doubts. Jake Ottinger is only 25 years old. They're going to run it for the next decade. I don't think that that's controversial in any sense for me to say that. New York Rangers. I'm going to go with have some more cracks at it. I'm not going to go with around for a while just because their forwards, although Lafreniere is emerging as a potential elite player down the line, their forwards are pretty old. When looking at Panarin, he's 33 years old. When looking at Kreider, I think he's 33 or 34. Zibanejad's 31. Trocheck's 31. Outside of Lafreniere, I'm high on Gabe Perreault. I'm uncertain about Ottman. You got guys like Cooley, Kakko, I have absolutely no clue. I'm not sure. I think they're still going to be a playoff team, but in terms of being a high-level contender, once Panarin starts regressing, once those top four guys start regressing, I'm not sure what this team, unless Lafreniere turns into a legit 90 to 100 point guy, unless Perreault's an 80 to 90 point guy, I'm not sure what that forward core they're going to be able to contend at a high level. They still have Adam Fox, fantastic. Second best defenseman in the entire NHL. Shesterkin's not old by any stretch. I think he's 28 years old. So I think the New York Rangers, as they're currently constructed, have 3 to 4 more years of high level contention. Again, I think they could be a playoff team beyond that. But once you have your superstar player in your other superstar player in Artemi Panarin start to fall off, and I know he's had a best season of all time this year at his age, at some point he needs to start slowing down, and I think that will happen over the next 3 to 4 years. So I'm going to go have a few more cracks at it. Vegas Golden Knights, they're interesting, man, because I don't know how they keep on doing this. I am going to go with it's almost over. I'm sure I'm going to get proven wrong by Kelly McCrimmon, but as soon as next season, they don't have a first, they don't have their first, second, they don't have any assets. So when looking at them, at some point, they do have Jack Eichel and Noah Hannafin and Shea Theodore, who are not old by any stretch, but most of their core is starting to get up there in age. Now, I'm changing it. I still think they have some more cracks at it. I don't know what I'm saying. They're going to find a way. They're going to find a way to circumvent the cap, even though Mark Stone is getting up there in age. Petrangelo's getting up there in age. Carlson's not young by any stretch. Marchessault as well. Nah, they're going to find a way to be competitive for 3 to 4 years, but I think 4 more years with the rate that they're going at, with the rate that they're trading assets, at some point they're going to have to enter some type of rebuild. 3 to 4 years for the Vegas Golden Knights. Winnipeg, have some more cracks at it. Their core is starting to get up there a little bit in age. Mark Scheifele is 31 or about to turn 31. Hellebuck about to turn 31. Morrissey's 29. Kyle Connor's 27. They still have 3 to 4 more years of being a very good team. They do have some very good prospects, don't get me wrong, but until I see those guys really step up and at the NHL level, I can't pencil them in to be high-level players and help that transition. So right now, I think that they have up until 2027, 2028, and then there might be a sharp decline when looking at it, especially after they gave some long-term contracts that might not age the best. Next up, Nashville. I'm going to go it's almost over. When looking at them, they're not that young of a team. So I think Ryan O'Reilly, Gustav Nyquist are going to start regressing soon, even though they played fantastic this season. Roman Yossi's 33 or 34 years old. I think that their goal is still to do this retool. I'm not sure that this is the core that Barry Trotz is going to go all in on. He didn't do anything at the deadline for the most part. So I think that they're going to slowly transition into their younger and probably go downhill a little bit. When you look at the overall talent in the Western Conference, I think they can make the playoffs next year, but beyond that, not too high on the Nashville Predators, but I'm not too high in the intermediate. I think down the line they could be very good after this retool, but right now this core is not going out and winning a Stanley Cup. They're not even a high-level contender right now, so I would say that it's almost over. And then lastly, the Edmonton Oilers. I'm going to go with around for a while, as long as they re-sign McDavid and Draisaitl and to a lesser degree Bouchard. They're going to be a high-level contender every single season. When you have arguably the definite best player and arguably the 2 best players in any given series, you're going to be a high-level contender. Stuart Skinner has proven that he can be a good regular season goaltender at this point, back-to-back years, if you subtract the first month of this season, of being a good starter for Edmonton. He's 25 years old, as well as other guys like Hyman is aging pretty well. He's only 31. RNH can play at a high level for the next 3 to 4 years. So in looking at Edmonton, as long as they have Draisaitl, McDavid, until they're in their mid-30s, Edmonton should be a decently high-level contender. But yeah, that's it. That's all 16. I believe I went through all 16. Let me know in the comments what contenders, what playoff teams are you more bullish on than me, and which ones are you more bearish on, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.